So let's start.
Let's start.
Okay, so welcome everyone to join our roundtable discussion EP5. And today our guest is Luke, and this is Ben, Ron, Melody, and I'm Alex. So let's start our topic today. The first topic is from Luke. Luke's topics, the first layer was the optimal thickness, how misunderstood first layer estimate in slicers is, and how you can optimize your first layer no matter the system used.
Okay, let's show the topic or the question.
All right.
So
Makes it
let's
easier.
start first.
I had it up on my notepad on the side to try and read it, but I can read it better on the screen there. So I'm Luke Hatfield. I've been working with Creality and Sovol and other manufacturers for a number of years with different things from Facebook group moderation to beta testing and engineering feedback, some of their social media stuff. So anyhow, the topic I picked for tonight is the first layer. A lot of people don't even have a idea of what the optimal thickness is for the first layer. So we'll start with that. I generally, for most PLA, find that a first layer thickness of 0.28 to 0.30 millimeters is an optimal first layer thickness. The way that you measure it is using digital calipers, and you can pull your skirt from the first layer off the print and measure it with the calipers. And depending on what your results are, you can either adjust your Z offset if you're using an ABL system, or if you're using a non-ABL system, you can adjust the bed height itself with the bed leveling wheels. Almost all printers use a 0.7 millimeter lead pitch on their adjusting screws. If you go to my help guide, I have sort of a chart that breaks it down. I have some of it partially memorized from just so many years of manually adjusting, but as an example, half of a turn would be 0.375, right? Or 0.350, sorry, because it's 0.7. So 0.35 is a half turn. You can reduce that in half. That'd be 0.1875. If you do a quarter turn, now you're down to a quarter of that, which is like 0.08 or something or whatever. And if you go down to a 16th of a turn, that's 0.04 millimeters. So if you read those charts, you can get an idea. Then when you measure the thickness, you know how much you need to move. You can know, oh, I just need to move it up a 16th of a turn or down a 16th of a turn and fine tune that first layer thickness so that it's bonding well and not having other problems. Some of the problems that can come from not getting that first layer fine tuned is if you're too far away, the part won't stick well to the bed. That can lead to edges of prints lifting up and becoming unadhesed from the bed. If you get too close to the bed, it can cause what's called cupping. And what cupping is the edge of the filament actually cups up a little bit, and that causes less air to be bound to the bed, and that also can have bed adhesion problems during the print. Um, so those are two of the more common things that you would run into. And we're doing a high level just breeze through on this. If you want to see some good videos, we'll have some stuff coming up from something that Sovol is sponsoring, and my help guide can also be a reference. Then now that we know that we're targeting, in my case, 0.28 millimeters for my first layer thickness, all the slicers have a box in there to show what your first layer thickness is. And a lot of people think that if they set it in the slicer, the machine will adjust to get that thickness right. And that is totally not correct. When you slice, the slicing software has to, because of mainly for the manual machines, has to have an estimate of how thick that first layer is to account for it in the total part height. So you're telling it, in my case, 0.28 millimeters is how thick it is. So it takes that out of the total height number and starts off there as 0, and then adds to that to get your total height, right? And even with an ABL system, it still asks for that estimate, and you still have to have it closely aligned if you want your overall heights of your parts to be as tight as possible. Let's see, for up, I guess that last part is sort of what we've been getting into, but how you can optimize your first layer no matter how the system is. So that's basically what I've been talking about, in that with the manual bed, you can use the wheels to fine tune. And if you're using a Z offset, you can actually go into your Z offset and either in the firmware that offers it, adjust it manually. If you happen to use an ABL system with firmware that doesn't give you direct access to edit your Z offset, it's the M851 command at a command line prompt in a G code, or sorry, a EEPROM address talking to the printer, and there's videos on how to do that. But you log into the printer, you send a M5003 report. It'll tell you what your current value is. You change the value by the amount you want to shift, and it will, with an M851 Z and the offset number. But anyhow, those are the two ways to go about it. One being with that, and one with the other. The only one that you can't really adjust per se is like a CR6SE, where it's a direct contact with a having a brain strain, with a potentiometer. With those in the firmware, it lets you tell it how far, once it's touched the bed, you want to move back up to be your first layer thickness. So you tell it what you want. I'd still measure it and make sure that that value is what's in your slicer. That's your nickel tour on the fast track for things to look out for in your first layer and setting your Z offset. And they are locked up on my end.
So that's pretty new to hear, because I always thought the printer will, just print what I set in the slicer, like 0.4 millimeter, and it will just print at 0.4 millimeter. I haven't measured it manually before, but I just use the Z offset, like, to make it well stick on the print bed, and and it's fine to me. I never noticed that. So
Great. I have you guys on audio, but your video is frozen for me, so
oh,
my
videos.
apologies. But yeah,
I think
I guess.
maybe
All right, just one last thought, real quick, because Sebastian brought up about the digital calipers or whatever. Definitely went the digital over manual or vernier calipers, and make sure that your calipers read 2 places past the decimal point in the metric scale. Because if it's only 1 place, it won't give you a fine enough resolution to make those micro adjustments that we're talking about. All right, I'm good.
yeah. So I think we're sorry that our live kind of continue to be audio or radio radio podcast. But anyway, I think yeah, you should have some experience, right, about first layer from a newbie side, since you use the printer a lot before, right?
Well, for me, when I do the 3D printing for the first layer, sometime I don't know. It is because the temperature or the material. Sometimes the filament can glue on the surface. Yep. But I also find some methods to solve that problem. For example, just use the glue to cover the surface, then start the printing. I think that is the most common way I use to slope this.
I'm not anti-bed adhesions. I just like to give people as many tools as they can to not add adhesion promoters. And there are times when you want it, like with PETG and glass beds, you need something there so that the part doesn't weld itself to the bed. It'll actually pull glass out.
So Ron, want to say anything?
Yeah. Well, I haven't have adhesion issue for a while because I constantly use our T500 and the PC sticker is like 2 stick, so I haven't had sticking issue once I use T500.
Okay. So let's move to the next part. The next topic is from Ben. Topic is he will talk about the Sovol's value for the customers.
Yeah, I think lately we are working on the Clipper open source stuff. So, but other than that, and for 2024, and I personally just discussed with our kind of boss about the core value of the Sovol compared to the other manufacturers. Yeah, of course, I think our focus should be always customers. Yeah, but anyway, when customer buying the printer or any product, they will compare. So, our conclusion is kind of like, first is a effective or budget friendly, and then open source. I think this is the direction. Temporarily, our product definitely not the best cost effective and open source at some level. Yeah, but this is direction we are push forward. Yeah. So so I like to maybe a little bit discuss with Luke and also the audience. Yeah.
Yeah, I think even before that you put pen to paper on the stated objectives, your company has done a good job of trying to give a good combination of features to cost for the printers, and you're definitely embracing the open source, going through all you are with trying to get the Clipper stuff out. A lot of people don't understand how fresh it is getting all the Clipper stuff set up and released. In at least in the commercially available printers, Clipper as a front door option for products is like less than a year old. So there's going to be some growing pains with that. And then I'm going to add one to Sovol's values. There's going to be more to this going forward, but you're also working to build a outreach of support within the community to help current and new printers do well, whether they have bought your product or not. And people will understand what that means more as we go forward. But that's one of your others. I am all by myself. And they're back.
Okay, we're back. So how's the video now? I know the audio might be okay, but
Your video and audio is good.
okay.
We can talk about it later, but there is a chance that in the future, if it makes sense, that because I have a wide bandwidth internet, that maybe I host and then you guys only are coming in, so it won't have as hard of an impact on your system, but we can work through
Yeah,
those
okay.
details later.
Great.
I don't know if Luke already finished his comment, and I want to follow that since we just our team just working on the SVO7 release open source release, and so I don't know if Luke already check it, and I want to know your kind of feedback about this move. Yeah, since some because we already see some customers still request us to open source more about this SVO7 stuff, but as actually we are just start doing research of the what the competitors do. Usually we do not do that, but because people still request, but we analyze internally that we already open source the meet the standard level at some point.
Yeah.
But
Part of this is going to be
yeah.
the word getting out into the community, because even though you pretty much fully open sourced it, there's people that don't know, that haven't seen like our videos, and they're going to keep asking even though you've already done it. So I wouldn't get too caught up in that unless they have a very specific request as to something that may be locked down. And I know last week we had somebody that was sort of complaining about the interaction of being able to get into the weeds on some of the screens, and the screens are outsourced, and there's going to be some work on that. But some of those things will be out of your control, at least up until you come to an understanding with those vendors. So time and patience. The vendors are really cautious because it's so easy to have your product reverse engineered, and now all of your own time and effort is not getting rewarded by your sales as a company. So people have to give a little bit of understanding to that. That being said, most of what the people want on the programming side have little to do with what they're worried about getting copied on the manufacturing side.
Yes, so for SVO7, we have already like open source the configuration file for Clipper. I think that's the most basic one, and people still want to ping out that type of like for the board. Um, we outsource the board for SVO7, like specifically MakerBase, and we are still like urging them for providing the pinout like for the board. So that's not something we can get our hands on it. Um, well, it majorly depend on the maker base. So, and as for the STL or step file, like, do you think like open source this part is necessary for like most of the users, or like we only need to open source the most major parts like the backplate of the extruder, so people can like change to like for saying revo hot end like kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think you. This is my personal opinion, so other people in the community can weigh in. But really, what they're looking for is, like you talked about, can they know what the dimensions are for the X carriage so that they can know what stuff they can attach to it when they're doing CAD design work or whatever. And basically, other than that, just the pinouts off the motherboard so that they know if they change other components or want to reconfigure the board pinouts, what's available.
Mhm.
I don't think that them having a cut list for how tall the extrusions are and what the pre-cut lengths are before they're crimped and stuff like that is near as important, because most of that stuff is easily taken care of without having like the full build sheet. as it were.
So, what's the common saying? Like having the whole printer step is awesome, especially for thinkers. Yeah, but that is time consuming.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are definitely working towards this fully open source, so-called, but it's time consuming, and actually our R&D is outnumbered for now, as it's outnumbered for now. So, and of course we are working on it, but there must be it must be open sourced in sequence. Like, what's uh the most important parts and what's less important kind of stuff.
Yeah. I need to learn more about sort of what the expectations is for the true open source. I would think that there should be a time grace for when a manufacturer provides the step files and everything. Like, I don't think that you should be expected to have the step files in the first month of release of a product or whatever. But I would think that it would be courteous to have them maybe by the third or fourth month after a product release. But that's going to be more of a dialogue between the community and the manufacturers over time. I don't know that there's a rule, right? But there is probably going to become a common practice, and we can figure out what that looks like.
Yeah, well, I want to add a few points here that since the company kind of set this as a core value for our customers, so when we do the open source, yesterday I kind of analyzed with our team like Rongpeng and other stuff that it's mainly 3 steps. And for what I just said, stand level, usually just we open source 2 steps. But first, third steps is hardware, which Rongpeng mentioned. But as far as we know that very, very few people will just use the hardware open source part. So this is a kind of dilemma, because I don't know if you not open source a single one part, which technically should not call it open source, but it's a huge work to do, but maybe very few people. And also, here's a question here about the software part, that because we release it on the GitHub, but our engineers only saw very, very few people just modify it on the GitHub branch. So this is also a question here. So I want to hear all your thoughts that about the GitHub modify, because the engineer they do some work and we release it, and they kind of do not see that much as some data here to see if their work be used whether in the GitHub or in the community. So this kind of work, I think we need time to get the feedback for the engineer to make their work worse, and also Liquid also know it. Not only know that we release it, but also customer give a very positive feedback. Liquid
Right.
C. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's two different ways that the GitHub and Reddit stuff can interact, and sometimes you're going to see the customers, instead of requesting to, I think they call it forking, to add changes to you in the GitHub, they might create their own fork and go do their own thing, and they won't see that in your GitHub. So just because you're not seeing a lot of pull requests to make changes doesn't mean that downstream from that, that people aren't using what they put up there for the benefit of the community and developing things that will be used later. There's a little bit of time that takes for that to happen, and some of it's not all visible to everybody that's at the upper part of the tree, as it were. right? Because it sort of works as a tree structure. You have, your release here, and then you can have different forks of it that people are doing different things on. And the only thing that the top of the tree sees is if one of these forks says, "Hey, engineers, can you either change or do something with this root information that then trickles back down again," right? So there's going to be way less of that asking than people just taking what's been offered. Now we know what we're working with and doing our own thing down below. And I don't know how to quantify it to your engineers to make them feel better, but I assure you, if they get it up there, that it's not just sitting there static. There's plenty of people that are going to be taking it and doing more work with it.
I think maybe I have to answer one comment here. It's Kevin. Yeah. So first, hi Kevin. This is the Comgore and Soul manager here. Yeah, I just check your post in the Facebook, and I'm really sorry for your situation here. Yeah, we will follow along your case and until you're satisfied or happy. Yeah, I'm really glad you buy the P500. Yeah, because I think maybe at this point you already think that you are a beta tester. I think no. Yeah, I do want to say that yes, you have so many problems, and we admit that. And since this is the Comgore's first 3D printer, actually do send real beta printer to look. Okay, so for the mass production, yeah, there is so many problems, and I honestly I could say that Comgore this is a first printer, and we have the limited resources. But anyway, I do not want to see this as a excuse. I want to say that I personally, as manager, I will follow along the case, and also I will kind of start I think dive deeper into the Comgore official group, or also the Comgore T500 3D printer official group. That yeah, some people ask that the merge of Comgore and Sovol will be just the name or all sides. I mean all sides, the product, the development of the product, and also the customer service, everything. So we definitely will hold our warranty. Yeah, so do not worry. But I fully understand your frustration, especially dealing with our customer service people that come back first and still not figure out, and you may be pissed off. But yeah, it's our fault. We will responsible for that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and not having reviewed Kevin's stuff, there's a couple different things that go into this relationship between customers and manufacturers, especially with a newer product release like the T500. If the manufacturing doesn't go the same as the beta testing and the preliminary setups, we won't know till it gets in the field. So you might feel like you're a beta tester, but they're doing their best to get it out as it was designed, as it was pre-tested or whatever. But occasionally things happen. Like I can't say for sure, but I'm pretty sure that that one of the components, particularly the MOSFET that controls the bed, seemed to have a lot of problems, and I know that they've been sending some out to repair them and stuff. And the other part is in early production, they may not have a large volume of additional parts to just be sending out, so they're having to work through getting the parts aligned and shipped to you. So it's not like they have them staged in a U.S. warehouse ready to give you one. In some certain cases, it's going to have to make its way from China back over here, and that takes time. And it's unfortunate, but when you become an owner of a new release model, that's part of the territory. Now, it would be nice if that never happened, but these are machines. They break. They occasionally have problems, and we just have to do our best to get you the parts in your hands so that it'll work right long term.
Will. Thank you, Will, so share the suggestions and advice. Yeah, and thank you for the contribution and help in the our group. Yeah, actually, our another a third core value which mentioned which Luke mentioned days later when I asked about how about our core value. In his opinion, I sent him that cost effective and open source, but he also mentioned that the community support. So first, I want to shout out to Will. Thank you for help us out for some time. And but anyway, he said that he thinks the issue users are having with T500 is that after a certain amount of troubleshooting, a box should be sent so they can send the machine back for repair. Many use these machines to make a living, and having downtime is disastrous. Please provide a channel for parts and replacement if necessary. Customer satisfaction is most important, especially when you are a new company. Thank you.
Can I speak to that a little bit, Ben? So it'd be nice if they had the resources for people to be able to send machines back to be worked on and then shipped back, but they have to be broken down to ship. They have to, and whatever. And honestly, if there was even a medium amount of these that needed that, it would basically kill Comgrow having them all sent back to then be re-delivered again. The shipping costs are significant, especially with the printer in the T500's case that weighs 83 pounds, which is what 24 kilos, whatever it is. It's heavy. Yeah, and I know that not everybody is like me that's really comfortable with working on a machine, but at least a printer that big, there is no cost-effective way to get them into somebody's hand um, other than yours for work. Right now, if we know things or particular things are happening, maybe we can work on creating videos to help aid with any potential part repairs, so that you're not just having to figure it out on your own as a manufacturer. If we've identified core things that are going on, Sovol can work on making sure we have adequate documentation on how to replace said parts or do whatever needs to happen. But the concept of sending printers back, especially with a printer that big, is really a non-starter. I hate to have to say it that way, but it just wouldn't ever work out.
And also, I like to add that yeah, personally, I know that this first we think the T500 the price what you get is really I think still kind of but anyway the price is higher, and I understand that the price kind of like a latest cutting edge iPhone 15 Pro more or less, I think. Yeah, so yeah, so anyway, I think the customer they support us, they just spend so much money on this printer. Yeah, and the problem they have is maybe even more than their enders, their Elegos, their Anycubics, their so as well 6. Yeah, this is situation. So I fully understand that. So if you know I understand that, so we will work this out. And look kind of very supportive said that its printer is huge and some, but anyway, if you support us to fix the printer, but it still can't be fixed. Yeah, it will be shipped out. No matter the cost it is. Yeah, I just said it. Okay, so I just even also talked to the kind of the after service team yesterday that we yeah at some because their aim as customer service sometimes is satisfaction, but sometimes they have some requirement to keep the profit, but this will conflict with the customer satisfaction. So But anyway, I just told them again that the first priority is satisfaction. Yes, not a profit. Profit is in the long run. But so we will take some loss, but we take some loss. This our, yes, it's our kind of
I'm,
effort. Yeah.
I'm applauding you're taking that stance. That being said, hopefully we don't have to ship too many back. And I'll put an offer out there because I have a T500. If anybody, and even Ben for your team, if you have guys that maybe they're having a communication barrier with your staff on narrowing down their problem, if they loop me in or send them to me, I can try and get them dialed into what they need to ask for so that you can better help them and sort of be the engineer interpreter for people that aren't engineers. But anyhow, yeah, that's part of the reason that I like working with Ben long term. He cares about what he's doing with the companies he works with. So, all right.
Okay, thanks for sharing, open sharing about the brand value, and thanks Luke and our audience discussion about the product. So let's move to the next topic. The next topic is from Ron. We'll talk about the reason for the x-axis layer shifting problem with T500.
Okay, let's go back to T500. So, what might be the reason for the XX layer shifting problem with the T500? So, me and one of our structure testing engineer, we spent our last week like testing what's the issue, what's the cause, like, and we find it interesting. Is the layer shifting on x-axis is due to nozzle scratching on the print, and um, the scratching uh, was due to over extrusion. Like the print is actually higher than what the nozzle would expect, so the nozzle run into the print and caused uh skip skipping step.
Right.
So that
So,
that makes layer shift.
so to bring the community in, so I have a T500 and I have experienced the x-axis layer shifting, and it's been back and forth on mine. Um, when I whatever they're defaulting the value for extrusion is, we have our extrusion multiplier or the percent of flow set down to like 92%. Because if you set it at 100%, yeah, it will extremely over extrude. I don't know why we have a 10% bias, what the default value is there. But that's one thing. But with my machine still properly balanced for flow and using Z-hop, it's still doing some x-axis layer shifting. And it's either going to be that and we're working on this in the background, so hopefully we get it figured out here pretty soon. Because I too would like to have mine not have that problem. But near as I can tell, we're either looking at acceleration rate issue or it's in the core setup of the values for running the stepper motor with the sensorless homing. And there's a back and forth because when you adjust the motor force, you also have to change the sensorless homing values. And I hadn't told you this yet, but I'm getting ready to do some testing on mine, and I'm hoping that that's the magic in the in the dust here or whatever. Because honestly, if we get the settings right in that stepper motor force, it should be able to drag halfway across that print over extruding and basically not miss any steps or whatever. So we're closing in on the solution. As soon as we know, we'll let you know, right? But yeah, it's I about got my finger on it, but I can't say I've resolved it. But I think we're right there. I will tell you that generally speaking, if you slow your print speed down a little bit, which is counterintuitive to people that get offered a machine that can move really fast, that's hard, and it won't necessarily guarantee that it won't ever layer shift, but we have found that running at a little lower overall print speed is helping for the time being.
Yeah. So there could be plenty of the costs for the layer shifting, like I saw in our group. Like one guy, he switched to from OrCAD, no, he switched from Cura to Prusa slicer and the issue scan. Like I'm not quite sure if that's due to the flow rate that's being sliced
Yeah. So like
and
I use Simplify 3D, and I got the flow rate. Well, I shouldn't say that. We're using your branded Cura, but I've also done it with slicing through Simplify 3D, and I haven't seen that it's quote unquote slicer based. Although certain slicers like to intervene on acceleration values and stuff occasionally, so that could play into it for some things, but I don't know if it's all of it. But if anybody figures it out that it's a particular slicing variable that's causing the issues, that would be a lot easier to fix than what I'm looking at.
Mhm. And there is one more personal guess is due to the voltage. Like in our lab, we mostly test the printer with like 220 volts. That's
Okay.
the voltage here in China. So it's different in the US. Yes, and we definitely have tested the printer under the voltage of 110, but it's not for the most part of the test. So I think we might should test it more oftenly. And yeah, I will talk to our structure engineer and let them test in the US voltage.
Right. And Ron Penn, you and I, we have a line of communication between each other, but
Mhm.
maybe I can give you some thoughts for the engineer for a sort of a what values I'd like to change in the
Mhm.
electromotive force and the homing stuff, and maybe we can test that out and see if that really
Yeah,
is what it is. Because
yeah, of course.
I'm not the Clipper expert or whatever, but I'm pretty sure that's where in the weeds lies the issue long term.
Great.
So Will said he using Orca slicer, and other than a couple times the nozzle taps the printer near the top of the job, he had almost inject modeling quality. Pretty crazy. Using the matte PETG, and so far this seems the T500 like PETG more than anything he have used.
Okay,
So
I
So
printed.
I will warn the people that got the early beds and didn't get the replacement bed sheet. Do not print matte PETG on those, or you'll never get it off again.
Yes, I printed the
Okay.
PETG with carbon fiber infill, like
Mm-hmm.
on that PC sticker. You know the Terminator, the
Yeah.
T800. I've
Mm.
printed on it. It like takes forever to remove it from the build build plate because it sticks too well.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
And I not to get too into the weeds, but with Will and the PETG. So it's been my experience that the viscosity of PETG as compared to PLA is about a 6 to 8% lower viscosity, or it's more it's more thick, so it doesn't flow as well, and that might also play into the fact that it's over extruding by 10%. You're now, if you're taking 6 of that 10% off, now you're only over extruding 2 to 4%. So that might be one of the other reasons that it likes the PETG. But anyhow, I still I understood that there might be an over extrusion problem. I use my own personal methods of making sure that the flow rate or the extrusion multiplier was where I wanted it, and we got that matched really well. Now it's trying to figure out why the motor is just skipping steps in the travel mode, because near as I can tell, it's happening in travel, not as it's actively printing. So if it's actively printing, it's generally going to be the impacting thing. But in the rapid moves, maybe not so much. But anyhow. To answer Ron's question directly, we're still dialing in on what the problem is. I don't think that it's the strength of the motor itself. The sensorless homing adds some variables in that you can't have it drive so fast that it mechanically damages the machine when you're doing the sensorless homing. And every time you change the overall power level, you have to recalibrate the values for the sensorless homing. So there's a dance to be done there, but I'm hoping I can work with them. And if I'm right about that and we get the numbers figured out, we will get it out to the public at all as soon as possible that we found the issue and the resolution.
Yes.
Thanks for Ron and Luke's advice, because layer shifting is one of the most common problem in our daily printing work, and wish those advice and suggestion can help with your printing work. So the next topic is from Melody. He will talk about the 3D printing manufacture due in 2024.
Okay. I chose this topic is due to Max Muse listed video. I'm not sure if you guys have seen the video of Max Muse, which is a prediction for 3D printing in 2024. Among the video, the first point he mentioned is that 3D printer will become less about repairing, separating, and upgrading, and more about simply 3D printing. 3D printing is just a hobby or tools. I have also seen Moses' tweet. He also made the same point as Max Muse. That is the future trend of printing will become smarter with zero user interaction. It's not a machine created specifically for makers or thinkers, but for more ordinary people who are interested in 3D printer and just want a 3D printer to print more stuff. About this point of view, I would like to know what everyone thinks, especially for Ben, because you are Sovol's product manager, and the Sovol's machine leaves some room for secondary recreation for users. I believe there are some users in our live stream who want to know how Sovol views this issue and what we will do in future research and development.
Who goes first?
Okay.
Right.
Maybe I'm
I'll go first, I guess. So I would agree with those people's estimation. So there's two general groups of people that come into 3D printing. Those that are makers that just need a tool that fills the space, and then those that are hobbyists that turn the printing into a hobby just for fun, right? I sit on both sides of that fence, as I had a product that I am still sort of working on in the background that may eventually be manufactured. That's what initially brought me into 3D printing. But then once I got here, the tinkering and playing with them has turned me into a hobbyist of 3D printing. Whereas a lot of people, they want to do what they do, and it's just a tool to do something else. They want it to be like their microwave or their toaster or their refrigerator. It's an appliance. They want it to work all the time reliably. And unfortunately, I'm going to segue off of that thought. And I apologize for that, but we're getting to the point where people are understanding that if they want that, they're going to have to pay for it. So I think that that's going to give the manufacturers a little bit more leeway to put effort into making sure the firmware's solid, the user experience is better. If we've identified any long-term maintenance problems, we have, if we can, a path to manufacture them out. These will be, I think, some of the core things that 2024 will bring for the manufacturers is basically refining the products and increasing the pleasurable first user experience with printers. I think that's where a lot of the effort's going to need to be, at least for the manufacturers that are going to come out on top long term.
So talking about user experience, like how much percent do you think that the Slicer app will play in this part? Like I use Bamboo Lab A1 and I use their Bamboo Studio, and I think that's like 50% why I choose Bamboo because it makes things like convenient. I can just download things from their MakerWord and just print it on my printer. I don't need to use the disk or TF card, and it's pre-sliced in MakerWord. I think that makes things much easier. Do you think Sovol need to do this?
Okay, so I'm going to break that down a little bit.
Yeah.
So they do use a version of Super Slicer that you like, that it's set up ready to go. You don't have to worry about the slicing part. Yes, I think that there's a trend towards that. There is a portion of the owners of those that don't like that they're locked into it unless they jailbreak their machines and go on their own. And that's a struggle within the community. But yes, long term, at least for those that are not the hobbyists,
Mhm.
having that environment where it either comes pre-sliced or you drag your model in and the software that they're providing adequately takes care of things like overhangs or part orientation, that kind of stuff, is definitely the way that we're trending. Personally, I think it's, unless we get a AI that comes in that really helps with slicing, that would be a godsend. But anyhow, unless we come with an AI that can take all of the user-based knowledge for how to best slice things and all that kind of thing, it's going to be a year or two before we hit that nirvana of totally just pick the model and it starts printing. I mean, I know we're doing it a little bit now, but I mean, at the level that every printer will be able to do something in that flow path, if that makes sense.
So as you might know, like T500, we used to like develop our official slicer, but then we decided to move it to Orca. So the only recommended slicer for T500 now is Orca slicer. Do you think we still need a so-called congruent slicer or like Sovol slicer? Or we just rely on Orca?
Yeah. I'd really like to see it ported into Simplify 3D, but I don't know how that all goes on the back end or whatever. I don't know if you just have to give them the machine data sheet for them to add it to their inventory, but either way, yeah. And so, not to get too in the weeds, but the pre-slice stuff takes away a lot of the things that the people that are, I call them experts at slicing. It takes away a lot of the tools that they want to get those little refined bits or whatever. I think Silverback mentioned something about different areas and humidity and that kind of stuff. But depending on how you manipulate slicers, can change the end part quality. And there's going to be a dance where they build it for those that don't want to do anything, like you're talking about. But maybe we'll get to a point where there'll be user inputs to use an AI or something to allow each individual user to put his spin on what he wants for his parts, if that makes sense. Right? So maybe a easy button, and then, oh, you don't want the easy button. Here's your advanced user control panel. We'll let you interrupt some of those things, right? At your own risk of messing the part up.
So
I also want to add something. In addition, the Mixed Muse also mentioned the one point that impressed me deeply. He thinks that in 2024, desktop 3D printer will have 3 more features easy to use. When we talk about easy to use, the Bamblab will come to my mind. And when we talk more affordable, the I think the Sovol machine will come to my mind because all of our machine, the price of SVL 6, SVL 7 series is around $200 or $300. But when we talk faster, nothing in my mind. Because in my opinion, as all the machine with Calibra system don't seem to have a huge differences in speed.
yeah, but there is like no difference in speed, but there is difference in quality.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
The difference is due to the
structure, yeah. Yeah, structure and the firmware you like for like of course the most speedy printer majorly use Clipper firmware. Yes.
Every model is going to have its own things, right? Does it have linear rails? Does it have POM wheels? What arc degree stepper motors were used? What quality of belts are used if they're using belts? If they're not using belts, how is that other equipment tuned and balanced? Does it create harmonic resonance through the cabinets? All these things play a part, right? And I don't know that there's a perfect anything. I think we talked before about how POM wheels can act to dampen things, but they also aren't necessarily that excited to be driven at 300 millimeters a second. So there's a back and forth on that kind of stuff. Sure.
Okay. So let's move to the last topic, which from me, I will talk about the insights and experience in 3D printing large scale model. And before I start this topic, Luke, can you share about your printing experience of the biggest printing work you have ever done?
Sure. It helps if you give me an advance notice, but as an example, my son is building an R2 type droid from Star Wars. He's doing the R5 D56. It's a particular model printer or a droid from one of the comic books or whatever. But anyhow, the head on it is 450 millimeters in diameter and about 400 millimeters tall. And we printed it all in one part. To do so, it was before we got the T500, so we used the Creality CR10 Max. It just barely fit in it. We used the Pilot 2 as a feeding device because it allows four filament infeed, and it auto splices the filament so you don't run out of filament at all. But anyhow, so that particular print, that one took 17 days to print it all in one piece. I've also done some other large, like cosplay body armor, like a chest plate for my friend's body armor we've done. That one wasn't near as long. It was like 5 or 6 days or whatever. Yeah, um, I think that a lot of, I can't say a lot, but my son is part of an R2 unit makers community, and many of them are buying the T500 just to do those large dome parts of the R2 units or the bodies, right? And we did print the body section print for that same droid. That one didn't take near as long because there's less material involved and some other things. But yeah, it's in the end with the large printers, you got to have either filament run out and a solid recovery from the filament run out, and or a way like we do to have the material pre-spliced so that there's no interruption in feeding the material, so that the printer can just keep printing without having to stop and re-add material as you go. We lost your audio. There you go.
So I think what we have print the biggest thing is the Christmas tree that we sent in the Facebook group. And that one we use like 7 or 8 T500, and it costs us almost 1 month to finish all the printing, without the assemble. Yeah, that is a pretty hard work. And from that on, I want to ask you that what is the most important thing that you think in printing such big, large-scale model?
Um, even material delivery. Don't use poor quality filament that might have. We don't see it too much, but there was GTS 3D or whatever for a while was putting out some filament that was actually getting stopped in the feed path of throats occasionally. So use quality filament. That's the biggest thing. Totally individual based thing. On all of my all metal hot ends, I do a avocado oil seasoning of the inside of the throat. I take the filament out. I put some avocado oil in there. I cook it for a little while, and it is literally cooking. And then I purge it out. But that puts an oily film on the wall up above in the throat. It acts like a cast iron pan. It doesn't stick to it, and that makes for a clean, long-term extrusion that only needs to be done, depending on what you do and everything, maybe every 3 to 4 months. And then other than that, um, depending on if you're using the power off recovery feature, if you're not, have a backup UPS setup that can recover fast enough that the printer doesn't go down. Those are rather expensive, but if you're doing a single huge part or whatever, you might want to invest in something like that if you're worried about it.
So my thoughts about the most important part for large 3D printing is a strong spool holder. Like I saw in our group that people use like 5 kg filament spool, like place the T500 spool holder, and I think T500 was like designed for 3 kilograms, but I'm not sure if the 5 kg spool will work. Like with larger spool, there is less worry about the filament runout. I actually rarely use the filament runout sensor because we are using the very beta version of T500, and the filament can get stuck in the filament runout sensor. So I just not use it.
It's my preference to not use a runout sensor if I can help it. Some printers recover better from it than others, depending on the firmware and how those G-code cycles are set up or whatever. But just from my long-term experience, anytime I don't have to restart a printer mid-print is better. And I'm sure some printers do better than others, and some people, the people that do the color changing layers and where they manually change colors out, get really good at it or whatever. But even then, you have to have your firmware set up well, because if you go to change out filament, especially with a direct drive where you're putting hands on the hot end, if its park mode has not got enough motor force to hold it in place, you'll get your filament replaced and it'll go back to the part and it'll have moved. And now you have a minor shift in your part, or major, depending on how it goes. So there's definitely pitfalls that even if all the rest of the things work out well, that things can go wrong.
So how was your filament resume experience with T500? Does it do like major shifting or any shifting?
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing.
Oh, okay. So when you resume the printing with another spool of filament, does T500 do major layer shifting or any shifting on the print?
I mean, you just have to watch the part. I haven't personally experienced a problem with the T500 with it, but I'm talking just long-term experience with multiple printers.
So let me share what I think what is the most important part about doing such print. And for me, that is quite tricky, because what I think the most important is to keep learning from failure. Just like the topic you choose, Luke, you choose today, and what Ron talked about, your topics talking about the issue about first layer, and Ron is talking about layer shifting. And I think I experienced all of that, uh, include that, but not only these two issues. I've experienced all of them during my printing work before, and what I have to do is to check what is wrong with the setting and keep adjust that, then restart it again. Sometimes I know that printing probably took me like 1 week to finish, and after 4 or 5 days, when I check it, I see that the printing was failed. Pretty upset and annoyed about that, but got no other thing to do, just to check what is wrong and start that again. So that is a process of learning from the failure. That is what I think the most important thing is.
Yeah, and I'll add a minor note to it, because you're, especially with the large prints, because we're running such a sustained period of time. Everybody's environment's different, but occasionally you need to take like a toothbrush and clean out the blades on your fans and stuff like that. If they're too dirty, and over time, if you have a fan fail during the middle of a print because you didn't bother to do a little bit of maintenance on it, it'll make you sick. And I'm not saying replace all stock fans, but if you want a less expensive upgrade that might be a reliability upgrade without changing anything else out, going to ball bearing fans. Not all, but most printers don't come with ball bearing fans from factory. And just switching to ball bearing fans will reduce your risk of fan failure on a print that might take multiple days or weeks.
So
I'm not glad.
I can't hear you.
So maybe we just finish it.
Yeah.
The
Thanks for everyone who joined our podcast today, and thank you for staying like 1 hour and 10 minutes with us. And we are gonna to say goodbye and see you in the next Thursday in the same time.
Yeah.
And thanks for Luke for joining our roundtable discussion again. Yeah.
My pleasure.
Bye.
And thank you everyone. Have a good night or a good day. So if you guys have any more question or something, just don't hesitate to post that in our group or Sovol official group. We will stove that for you. And if you have something want to share with us, because I saw that Will said that he have some picture, but can share them here. You can share that in the in our official group, and we can have a look. Yeah. So thank you for joining our discussion again, and hope to see you in the next time. Yeah, bye everyone.